And let me attribute this to our affiliate WHDH here in Boston, and I want to show you exactly what they are now reporting. These are photos, two photos, sent to WHDH by a viewer, shows the scene. The first one shows the scene just before, and the other one shows right after the bombs went off on Boylston Street. You see this first photo here. You see a black bag there along the streets, and then you see afterwards at virtually the same location, the explosion. You see these bags. WHDH says they provided these pictures to the FBI as they continue their investigation. They're looking at the pictures to see if it's possible it could be the second bomb. In the first picture, they say you can see a bag next to a mailbox and up against a barricade along the Marathon route. In the second, which they've blurred because it's very, very graphic, there is no sign of the bag. That from our affiliate WHDH. The FBI now investigating these photos to see if, in fact, that is the bag that contained the bomb with the pressure cooker device. Fran, let me bring you back in. Assess what WHDH is now showing.
Well, what will happen is the FBI in particular and the forensics lab at Quantico will take these photographs, the fragments that have been sent to Quantico, and this is the painstaking process. When the chief of police in Boston says this will be methodical and they will be cautious, this is the sort of painstaking investigative steps. They'll try to measure up fragments, small fragments of what's left to what they see in these photographs and try to see what they can learn in particular about the construction of these specific devices. They'll then try to see what they can learn about the device that's not pictured from the other bomb site in Boston. They'll look for things like fingerprints, DNA samples. You may find DNA samples of victims, Wolf, but you may also find DNA samples, hair and skin samples from the bomb maker himself. And so those are the sorts of details that they will begin to try and get from the crime scene, the forensics, and photographs such as these.
It's very disturbing because in that first picture before, you see this bag outside of the barricade right next to that mailbox. John King is here, and we're looking together at this photo, and you say to yourself, why would they let a bag stay outside the barricade like that in an open area where the marathon is coming to a conclusion?
Well, this is one of the questions, and the police commissioner was asked about this. Are you confident about your plan? Did you have lapses in security at the finish line? And one of the things investigators are now looking at, Wolf, is that you have a larger crowd packed in there when the elite runners cross, and then the crowd shifts a little bit. The people who are there, the dignitaries who are there to watch the elite runners, they're there. And then this was well after that, about 2 hours after the elite runners cross. There's a more fluid situation. People are moving about, and one of the questions is, as the crowd shifts and as the crowd changes and as the pressure is off, if you will, did you have your everyday marathoners crossing at the 4-hour mark? Did security people let their guard down? Now, obviously, the police commissioner said that is something they will deal with after the fact, that the focus now is on the investigation. But there is no doubt, as they look at these photos, and we talked about this earlier, I've talked to a Boston police source who says there's a frantic review of these photos, and this source told me, without being specific about these, shown by our affiliate WHDH, that they do believe they have some possibles was the term he used, on the devices in the locations of the explosions. What they did not have in that conversation just a short time ago this afternoon, this source told me, was any evidence, video evidence so far, of a drop or a placement. So this is part of what Fran calls, and the police officers have called, the methodical review. But if that happens, someone was able to, while the runners are still crossing the finish line, again, these are your everyday marathoners, not the elite runners, but if someone were able to get that close with a bag that big unnoticed, no doubt about it, there will be questions of a security lapse.
Well, let's ask Tom Fuentes, the former FBI assistant director, a CNN contributor right now. What's your assessment of these two photos?
Well, I agree, Wolf, that they're going to have to be analyzed in detail to determine exactly what we have. You know, it looks bad as it is, but I'd like to hear more results of analysis to determine what we have.
Wolf, it's worth noting for our viewers, what we're looking at is both the before and after photographs of this that we've gotten from our affiliate. There will be hundreds of frames in between and before the picture the first picture of the bomb and the afters. They will go frame by frame through these to try and extract every bit of forensic intelligence they can get to identify the bomber.
And as you take a look at these pictures right now, walk us through Tom Fuentes, walk us through how the FBI would go through this process of trying to assess if, in fact, this is the bag that contained one of the two bombs.
Well, certainly they'll be taking the physical evidence that's been recovered from the debris at the crime scene and try to determine if it would match what we see in the photograph, at least as near as they can tell without having the two things together. But that they're going to be looking at these photographs, as Fran mentioned, in detail, and looking at the sequence of the photographs and the timing of them, and try to determine from that what the likelihood is of the match.
Would it be normal to just have a bag lying there outside of the barricade close to the runners like that? Wouldn't some local law enforcement type notice that and raise some suspicions, get a dog over there to sniff it?
Well, possibly, but you have people showing up there to, be with their loved ones and colleagues who are in the race and maybe carrying backpacks and may have been there a long time and placed backpacks down because they're heavy. And so, you have everybody there, or a large number of people there with backpacks, and many of them taking them off, setting them down because they're heavy, moving them around, and most of the people are focused on the runners and on the people in the crowd and aren't necessarily paying attention to each individual bag that gets left. It's not the same as an airport where they say unattended bags will be picked up and possibly destroyed. Here you have so many bags laying around and people talking and milling around, moving away from the bags, that it's a little bit harder to determine the suspicion of a particular bag lying around.
Tom, we heard the FBI agent in charge, Rick Delorier, say at this news conference a little while ago they believe the bombs were placed in what he described as black nylon bags or backpacks. He used the word backpacks, also bags. If there's a bomb and it explodes, how do they know? Wouldn't that bag be destroyed in the course of that explosion?
No, interestingly, in an explosion like that, almost none of the elements, whether it's the bag, the containers, the bomb itself, almost none of them are completely destroyed or vaporized. They tend to be fragmented, and the fragments get exploded airborne, and pieces of that nylon would be embedded in spectators' clothing that were nearby, or may end up in just on the sidewalk as part of the debris. So in most of these cases, they'll be able to reconstruct the material that bag was made out of, maybe even the brand of the bag if they get a piece of the label or some other logo from the bag. Same thing with containers inside and what was used to actually hold the explosive and hold the shrapnel. All of those things will be recoverable if they can find them, and if they can, piece together that probably came from the device and wasn't just part of the other trash that was in the area that got spread around.
And I'm sure they'll be looking closely at this image to see if, in fact, if they blow it up or whatever, if they expand it, to see if it is, in fact, a black nylon bag or something else. All right, everybody stand by. It's the bottom of the hour.